The problem is he shouldn't have been put in that position again.
So Piers Morgan just delivered a devastating breakdown of the Secret Service failures during what appears to be a third assassination attempt on Trump, and he's absolutely right to be furious. This isn't just about security lapses, it's about a pattern of incompetence that's putting American democracy at risk. Let's break this down.
The Secret Service may have done a good job in safely shutting down the attack once it began, but the fact is the alleged gunman was able to breeze past security, arms to the teeth, and sprint toward a ballroom where everybody in the presidential line of succession pretty much was sitting.
This is the key point. The Secret Service's reactive response doesn't matter when the preventative measures completely failed. We're talking about the entire presidential line of succession in one room, and an armed attacker got within sprinting distance. That's not a security lapse, that's a systemic breakdown.
The gunman actually mocked the lax security in his twisted manifesto that he released a few minutes before the attack, writing, "This level of incompetence is insane," and pointing out that had he been an Iranian intent on doing something bad at that event, it could have been an awful lot worse. At best, this is embarrassing for the US. At worst, it's another catastrophic failure.
The manifesto detail is chilling because it shows foreign adversaries are absolutely watching these failures. When a domestic attacker can mock our security incompetence and explicitly reference how easy it would be for Iranian operatives, that's not just embarrassing, it's a national security emergency that emboldens our enemies.
Well, and in a way, even worse, this guy had got a train from California to Washington and then just calmly booked himself into one of the Hilton hotel rooms where nobody had checked the fact that he was armed to the teeth.
This exposes how basic threat assessment protocols completely broke down. Cross-country travel patterns, weapons purchases, hotel bookings near high-profile events. These should trigger automatic security reviews. The fact that none of this was flagged shows the system isn't just failing, it's fundamentally broken.
As much as I would give credit to the Secret Service for what they did once he made the attack in stopping him reaching the ballroom, the reality is he should never have been able to get as far as he did in the first place, armed in the way that he was. And I just find it incredible that when you have a president as controversial as Donald Trump, and where it's obvious a lot of people hate him as much as like him, after two attempts on his life, one in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he got hit, and one on the golf course where I think it was miraculous that he didn't get killed that day either. The fact that this guy was able just to calmly book himself into a room on the Friday, the day before, and no one's checking that he is a potential attacker with loads of weapons.
Exactly right. After Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump was actually shot, and the golf course incident, there should have been zero tolerance for security gaps. The pattern is undeniable. Each failure makes the next attempt more likely because attackers see the system can be beaten.
Now, I thought that was incredibly disingenuous by Norah O'Donnell for two reasons. One, of course, she was inferring that this had been said about President Trump. She knew that, he knew that, and it was just a ridiculous game she was playing to try and feign innocence. Oh, you think he was talking about you? But secondly, I was trying to think, if that had been Obama or Biden or any of the Democrat presidents in particular, would she have read out these incredibly defamatory comments? And the truth is, I don't think she would have done. So
this perfectly captures the media's double standard. CBS reading defamatory comments about Trump on air while feigning ignorance is exactly the kind of biased coverage that would never happen with a Democratic president. The selective outrage and journalistic standards are completely exposed here.
So there is one rule for Trump in their eyes and one for everybody else. So on that, I'm with you completely.
The media's different treatment of Trump directly contributes to the toxic environment that radicalizes attackers. When major networks normalize derogatory coverage and inflammatory rhetoric, they're creating the very atmosphere where political violence becomes thinkable to unstable individuals.
Yeah, again, noticeable that he didn't mention President Trump by name, and also that he claimed not to have any information about potential motive, when in fact, several hours before he posted that, we'd had all the contents of this twisted manifesto, which made it pretty clear what his motivation was.
Obama's careful word choice here is pure political calculation. By avoiding Trump's name and claiming ignorance about motive when the manifesto was already public, he's maintaining plausible deniability, while his previous rhetoric about democracy being under threat helped create this climate.
Jad Posobiec, the problem here is if you look at this twisted manifesto of this latest shooter, Cole Allen, described by people who knew him as a near genius. He was a teacher who'd recently won awards. Everyone seemed to like him and so on. He wasn't a natural red flag person where you'd look at him and think, well, he's got criminal convictions and history of violence or any of that. None of that appeared to be there. Seems to have been a brilliant mind, poisoned, it would appear, by propaganda from the left. I mean, a lot of the language used in his manifesto is the language of the hard left against Trump. And there's no denying that.
This is the crucial insight. Mainstream Democratic rhetoric has created an environment where intelligent, accomplished people become convinced that political violence is justified. When teachers and award winners are writing manifestos about stopping fascism, the messaging has clearly crossed dangerous lines.
And I've warned for a while that if you continually say that Trump is Hitler or Stephen Miller is Hitler or whatever, whoever it is, then to a deranged mind, eventually they're going to think they're doing a public service and a duty by killing the new Hitler. Why wouldn't they? So I do think language really matters.
The Hitler comparison is the key to understanding how this rhetoric turns deadly. If you genuinely convince people that Trump is literally Hitler, then assassination becomes not just justified but morally required. Democratic leaders know this logical progression and continue using the comparison anyway.
There's been increasingly incendiary rhetoric in American political discourse now for many years from the left and the right. Everyone is culpable in this area, I think. I think it's disingenuous of people on the right to say it's just the crazy lefties. I think it's disingenuous of people on the left to deny they're doing it and then to pretend that none of their side do it. Everyone's been doing this. The rhetoric's got increasingly unpleasant, nasty, violent, fractious, divisive, polarizing, and inevitably, in a country with over 400 million weapons, firearms, you're going to get unhinged people who take it in their own hands to exact their warped form of justice, which is they think, oh, well, this guy's the new Hitler. I've got to try and kill him. They're all Hitler. They're all Nazis. We've got to kill them. I understand the warped mindset. If you keep being told someone's Hitler, then eventually you're going to take out Hitler as a public service.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. I'll push back on another point, but I do think people...
While both sides have used heated rhetoric, the volume and intensity of Trump as Hitler messaging from mainstream Democrats, celebrities, and media far exceeds anything comparable from the right. The both sides framing, though diplomatic, undersells how one-sided the really dangerous rhetoric has been.
And jokes about political violence or about Trump being dead and his wife being a glowing widow, whatever, given there have been 2 attempts in his life before that joke was made, should be ruled actually unacceptable. That actually it's not funny, nothing that encourages the idea of dead politicians. I was out the other night at the Time 100 gala and I sat with Senator Mark Kelly and with Gabby Giffords. And I remember when Gabby Giffords got shot and very nearly killed. And it was a reminder to me that political violence, whatever side you're on, is completely unacceptable, and rhetoric about political violence should be completely unacceptable. And I've seen it on both sides.
Here's where I disagree,
and I also
Piers.
think calling out attacks and incidents involving politicians where you
Piers.
take a view because it's not your
Piers.
side,
Piers.
I think is wrong.
The Gabby Giffords reference is powerful because it shows how political violence creates lasting trauma and damage to democracy itself. When assassination jokes become normalized entertainment, we're desensitizing people to the very real human cost and making future attacks more psychologically acceptable.
Stop joking about politicians dying or being killed. Stop questioning and querying that they're staged when they're obviously not. And stop glorifying in rhetoric political violence at all.
These 3 rules should be the bare minimum standard for anyone in public life. The fact that we need to explicitly state that joking about politicians dying is unacceptable shows how far our political discourse has degraded. Real leadership means calling this out regardless of party.
I'm not sure it's as simple as simply saying the internet's winding people up, social media's winding people up and so on, when actually the facts suggest this has always been a problem in a country which is awash with guns and a lot of people, many of whom suffer from mental illness or anger management issues or whatever it may be.
He's absolutely right that America has a unique combination of widespread gun ownership and a culture that's historically tolerated political violence. From Lincoln to Kennedy to Reagan, these attacks aren't anomalies. They're part of a darker American tradition that social media has only amplified.